Why are we highlighting these? Emilia Murray is the captain of the young Matildas. She's only 18 years old and only recently turned 18 as well. She's got pace. She's got real smarts. She's one of these wingers that reminds me a lot of Hayley Raso. Not quite Holly McNamara, in terms of her movement, but she's got the straight line speed and she's got a good football brain. The thing I really like about her, Grace, is there's no pressure to rush her into the national team anytime soon. She's allowed to develop, she's allowed to grow in the A-League Women's, the competition is getting longer. She has the skill set to be a Matilda, but there's no pressure. I mean, we talk about someone like McNamara, get her in now, because really, I think she's in our best 23. Same with some of the other players that I've thrown up there, flying kites to try and see if anyone's listening out there. But with someone like Emilia Murray, I think there are players in this demographic like a Hannah Lowry as well at Perth. It's a slow burn and we can see the evolution of these players in the league. But the reason I wanted to ask you about Murray is, what does she need to add to her game? Because I've got some thoughts, but I don't want to bias your opinions here. As we track the development of a player like this, what do you want to see her keep adding to her game as she grows from great prospect, captain of the young Matildas, into a plausible senior Matilda?
Yeah, look, I really like what we're seeing from Emilia Murray. She's an excellent young player. As you've mentioned, all of those qualities I agree with. I think she is potentially a real future of the young Matildas and the Matildas setup in terms of program. I think at a young Matildas level, she's got leadership and how she leads that side, and again has just come back from Kyrgyzstan with Leah Blaney's under-20s team. So I think bringing that experience back into Adelaide United, and as years go on, whether she stays at Adelaide or looks to move around into another A-League women's club, I think it's those kind of experiences domestically that will grow her into what could be a potential future Matilda, because I think she's got the qualities that she could then step up into that national team program, and I'm happy she's not been rushed as well. I think that's great.
In terms of what to look for, like, she was dynamite off the bench yesterday in a game where Adelaide really needed it, because Fiona Wirth started pretty well in the first 15-20 minutes, but then they were struggling for cut-through against a well-organised Newcastle defence that actually got a 2-0 lead through pressing quite effectively against the Adelaide team at the other end of the pitch. But finishing and decision-making in the final third were the two things that Murray hadn't been displaying this year. She'd scored just the one goal so far. This was number 2. It's only her second career goal. But we've seen this with a player like Courtney Vine. I think Courtney Vine took 21 games to score her first A-League women's goal, and then they started to come gradually, and now it's a far better strike rate. And we've got a senior Matilda who spent her entire career bouncing between NPL and A-League women's without needing to rush overseas. And she's 24, turning 25, and entering the prime years of her career. And so it's that finishing, it's that final touch, it's that sort of sense of where the goal is. You can't purely be zoomies and worrying only about outsprinting your opponent down the wing. It's that game sense which I'm seeing the building blocks of. And last night, I really did think I'm seeing a future Matilda before my eyes with the impact that she made in that game.
Look, and I'd argue that any young player, finishing and decision-making are things that come with time. And it's very, very rare that a young, unrefined, raw player just has those things sorted really early on in their career. Over time, over years in the league, over years internationally, it's the experience. Decision-making then just becomes second nature, as does finishing.
And it shouldn't, the intangibles, who she is shouldn't matter. But you mentioned she's a captain, she's got leadership. She's an Indigenous Australian, really proud of her heritage. She's the kit model for Adelaide and is incredibly commercial. Emilia Murray as someone that you could put on a poster and say, this is the future of what football looks like in this country. But it's also an Indigenous athlete, which is fantastic. It's a potentially great story, as long as the football is equally great.
Well, I think the thing about Emilia Murray as well is she's so well-spoken, and she's obviously got a really good head on her shoulders. So irrespective of anything else, the fact that she's a level-headed young woman in the game is something to be celebrated. The fact that she's a wonderful footballer, Indigenous Australian, is just a bonus on all of that.